Hello everyone, welcome back to Wild Wild Wes's Gelvin Valley for Farming Simulator 15. We've rolled all of our fields and now we're set to work to plant them. I gotta feed the tractor here a little bit of sauce. Let me see, can I also, maybe I can only do one at a time. Also need to fill the planter as we get going, putting it in some canola. I think I'm gonna do canola. That's what's on the rest of the farm. Why not? Okay, got the sauce. Let me move this out of the way. Have the pickup over here. Probably should fix our tractor while we're at it. I don't want to spend the money at the moment. Let me put that here. Let me go back to the tractor. Oops. There we go. Now it'll let me fill the seeds in the back. I had to get pretty much all the vehicles of the farm over here. We have a pretty much a skeleton crew. Even the planter that we're using is rented. And we'll see if this little tractor can handle it. I have a feeling it's going to struggle doing it. So let me just get this going here. And I'm going to plant a little bit, go along the edge. Let me see, can I don't know if I planted kind of up the side of the hill or just what's going on. I don't think I did. All right, let me get it going. We'll put this in here. And I'm going to just head over here and start planting. And maybe pause right here-ish so I can get my equipment kind of out of the way. Looks like I'm running a little low on fuel in here. You know, I filled this a long time ago. Oh shoot, I got this tractor in the way too. I filled the fuel tank a long time ago, and it's interesting to see just how long, you know, it can last. I'll just probably put it up here and park as, yeah, it ought to be enough. Okay, I'll just park her right there. Don't want you. We'll bring this up here too. I'll probably try to have some kind of a caravan when I head to another field. You know, odds are I'm probably going to need to refill the planter at some point, so I'll just try to, I'm doing a terrible job backing up. Alright. Oh, turn off the blinker, indicator light, back to the field. Alright, let's give this a go. Finally, we can get to the point here where we can start drilling seeds in the ground. And you know what? It isn't handling it too bad at the moment. I don't think I'm going downhill, nope, even a little bit uphill. So maybe I have more punch in this particular tractor than I even knew. Whoop. Yeah, I think I'm headed downhill now, so everything works when you're headed downhill. But when you, oh yeah, see, this is just a little bit more than this tractor can probably handle, so it's kind of a tail wagging the dog. I'm getting dark too. Oh, come on, climb up the hill. Yeah, there's a little, there must be some extra bumps in here that it just doesn't like. Yeah, I think I see that right there. There's a bulge. I probably should have never come up in here and done this. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. We'll lift this up, and put it down, lift it up, put it down. I think I put it down. There we go. And get it planted, and yeah, maybe what we're going to discover coming up here in this corner is it's enough pain in the neck that we're better off just putting it back to grass. Yeah, see, even there I didn't totally get the corner, so in order to get the corner, bring it up here, but we're probably going to have the same trouble with our combines You know, I know the topic we've had the past couple videos is how to pick a map, and one of the things I know I said I appreciated was non-maps with non-square corners. Well, although we're kind of desperate, of course, we want to make lots of money or as much as we can, but this is probably over the top, so I probably need to put it back into grass, this whole area up here, and just cut the corner off, because you know what, it's going to be a pain getting up in there with our other machinery to harvest it. So probably need to do the only honorable thing, which is to tighten that up in there. And probably a lot of these fields, after, yeah, I'll have to give it some thought. I probably should put a grass edge around all of them. Some of them I got as close as I could, to the edge, just to utilize as much space as I could. And the trouble is, along the edges, there's a lot of times extra bumps and things like kind of we're coming into right now. And, fiddle. Up, down. Oh, shoot. I just don't have as powerful tractors I need. I'll think to do it, so... Come on. Yeah, see, it gets to a point I just can't do it. Maybe if I take a run at it here. Boom, put it down. I think it gets smoother as you go up the hill. Oh yeah, I think I said I was going to try to do a little map work to smooth some of this out. Easier said than done on some of that. Yeah, see, you look under here. Yeah, that is hard to, it'll do it, kind of like we're doing. We're making it work, but it's not optimum for good map, or good farm work, rather. And I know Wild Wes in a recent video stopped by. One of the comments that he made is he somewhat intended that the area over here below where he put a wood chip storage place, he was kind of somewhat originally intending that the player would have logging going on, not in this particular field, not arable. Come on. Yeah, there's another. I think I definitely need to come in here with the small. After I pull a crop off, maybe next time I come through here, I'll just put some in grass and be done with it. Because this is painful. First lap is always a painful one. Yeah, and some of this, it's just too close to the stream here. I should have known better to leave just a little more grassy area. But it is what it is. Anywho, as we get through the first lap here, climb the hill. Now we doing on seed. Oh yeah, we got plenty. Shoot, we may be able to seed this whole thing without having to fill up the seeder again, so that may be a good thing. But in the past couple episodes, I want to get back to the topic and try to get it done. Always get distracted on other things, but kind of the topic of the day was how we all decide which map, that we want to take on and spend some time on. And so kind of the criteria, if you will, that I've mentioned for me is it a large map? Size kind of matters. I tend to prefer the larger sized ones, 4x and above. Not exclusively. I'm just saying those tend to catch my eye quicker because they're easier to play without seeing the edge, so it can feel a little more realistic in some ways, but less so in other ways because they don't have as much detail. But then of particular importance is, does it have an interesting looking PDA map? The top-down map that shows where all the fields are, the road network that it has, whether there's any streams, wooded areas, some of those things. It just shows all the details. And for me specifically, it's, how many square corners does it have? As I tend to prefer those maps that come with fewer square corners. So what does a PDA map look like? Is it based on a real life area? If I know a map is based on a working farm, that a person could look up on the map if they were, or on the Google Maps if they were so inclined, and see, where there's a real family that has lived there. This was their home. I don't know, that's more meaningful to me, and a lot of times the landscape of those kinds of maps, it's just a lot more realistic how it's set up, because, well, that's kind of the world as it is, how God designed it, and it just tends to be more pleasing to, at least my eyes, in terms of wanting to play it. But also, if it isn't based on a real life area, does it at least look plausible, like it could be a real life area, or does it just look like so much of the time the standard Giants maps, although they've improved as the versions have as more versions have come out, but in some of the earlier versions you could just tell it didn't look real. And a lot of it was the shape of the fields. If they were just a bunch of squares, and not even squares that are back to back, like they might be in real life, where there'd be roads between them that made sense. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but I think we all know it when we see it. Some of the standard Giants maps, that they made square fields for, a particular reason, probably for the sake of hired help, so the game could work with them better. They just don't have the real feel. So even if it isn't based on a particular area, does the map feel plausible, that it could be real? Another thing I put in here, are the colors vibrant? Are the models good? So I know last time we talked about that. And then I was, just as the episode closed last time, I was getting into talking about errors. And the nature of some errors, it's pretty hard to avoid all errors, but the ones you really want to make sure don't hit your map or your gaming experience are the ones, that fill up the log, and they just recur over and over, where there's something that a Lua file is asking for, that it's mandatory that it has, and it can't find it, or something that it's told is there, but it isn't there. So it's like kind of a nil error. And depending on some of these, some of them may recur just violently in the log, accumulating literally thousands and thousands of entries. And of course, we've all probably had that experience where we get one of those in there. I actually, sometimes the recurring ones, you can still play the game, but it may stutter it, as it's filling the log and it's expending resources to put it in there, or it may slow down your FPS. There's any number of things that it may cause. But then there's some others too where it is literally game breaking. You can't even load the map because of the errors that are in it, or at some point in the game it just stalls and freezes because errors, So those obviously are to be avoided. A few errors are tolerable on the log, not optimum. You don't never want to just have errors in there if they can be avoided. But a few of them don't hurt. And I think I was starting to explain, unfortunately, I talked at length the last time about a map I was considering for Farm Sim 11, the series new series I want to start up for that, and it was called the Salem, South Dakota map. It's a 4X map, so a large one. It's based on a real area that ticks another box, and had a somewhat interesting looking PDA, although there still was a fair number of square corners in it and whatnot. But probably the hardest part of that map to deal with was its recurring errors. And if you look at the listing for it over on Mod Hoster, and there was a lot of people, complaining about it. Why are you putting an offset over there? Go away. Oh yes, because I need to tighten this up. Pink. Let's see here. Is that tight enough for this particular hill? Hopefully. There we go. Yeah, I think that'll work. Hold on. Maybe I better just squeeze it just a wee bit. There we go. Just to make sure I get good coverage. Trying to take it across the hill. This is probably approximately what we would do in real life. How many is it planned? Probably all the shape of the hill here. So, unfortunately, the Salem, South Dakota map has some of those recurring errors on it. And back in the day, before I knew anything at all about modding or how to fix errors like that, or at least look into them to try to see if they could be prevented or stopped or whatever. Why didn't it plant along it? That's just bizarre. Anyway, as long as it plants along as I go, yeah, it's leaving some bare spots, I'm afraid. But I don't like this one bit. Is that just not... Well, let me finish this particular one. That's probably what I need to do. Finish the line. Then on the next one, I'll narrow it up a bit. Yeah, hills screw with GPS. I don't think I'm gonna get these little bits kind of on the way back. I'm not gonna be able to get all of them. Let me narrow it a bit more. Is that enough? Maybe, kinda, sorta. Okay, that now is definitely narrow. Yeah, that'll be better. So back in the day when I played Salem, South Dakota, because I was intrigued at the time. It was a large map based on a real life area. It ticked a lot of the boxes, and I didn't even initially know that it was popping a ton of errors, in the log. Eventually, when I played it for a while, the game would just crash. And there must be an upper limit on how much the log is able to hold. And I don't know what that is. Maybe it isn't even a game limitation. Maybe what it is it's a limitation on how much is able to get crammed into a text file with continuous rapid changes. I just don't know. So what I did, I think I read this on a forum somewhere, what someone suggested in terms of dealing with the errors, which isn't the best suggestion, but I do have to say that it worked for a little while at least, is they said, turn off the log file. I think having the log file turned on is a default setting. So you can go into one of the XML files in your documents folder and you can turn off the log file. So I would. And then it would seem it would stay on just fine for a time. I think eventually it would still, crack the game or prevent it from working appropriately. What I didn't know how to do then, and is still a tough exercise, is figuring out how to properly diagnose and fix those particular errors. Ideally, the modder has those errors fixed, before he releases the mod, but in fairness to modders, we don't always know how to fix errors when we have them, and because just our learning is limited or whatever. So I have no doubt the map author did his best with what he knew how to do. He may have even had a note on it that he couldn't. I just don't remember those details. But suffice it to say, that was a crippling error, and it does kind of hinder someone from wanting to play in that map, especially if you don't know how to fix it. Well, so I just did a little series on it, and I explained how to fix it and where to kind of do it, At least now I know kind of how to get rid of that, and it was so gratifying, to do that fix and then turn the game on and no longer see just all those punches hitting the log file. And I say gratifying because I remembered that a long time ago when I played on it. When I say a long time, I mean, yeah, it's many, many moons ago when I didn't know how to fix it. And so to see it now off, it just felt good to be able to close the loop and fix it, even though I don't plan on spending, a significant period of time on it. But that, is obviously going to factor into any of our choices to play a particular mod map or not, whether it's, going crazy with errors. And if it's going crazy with too many errors, and it's going to, crash our session, well, then obviously that isn't a map, that any one of us is gonna want to spend a lot of time on. A few errors are okay, but a lot of those can just be kind of annoying and interrupt gameplay interrupt us, as it were. Another criteria for a map, just to keep this moving, is does it have a lot to do? Or, and are there extra things beyond the standard fare? Probably a common complaint you hear with this game is, people say, well, we just get bored, boring. And some of it probably is going to depend on the individual person's love for farming or this genre of game as it is. But I mean, that's a criteria too, is does it have lots to do? And when I say that, I usually, what I'm meaning is something beyond what the standard map would offer. So for example, this particular map, Gelvin Valley, Wes has pretty much all of the standard things that would come with the base game. You can plant all the regular crops. You can do timber harvest if you want. You have the silage you can do. Although he's crippled silage a little bit because it's so doggone lucrative that he wanted to make it a little bit tougher. And actually, I consider that a good thing. When action is taken to deliberately make the map harder while leaving some of those functions in there. But he also added some things, the ability to raise cattle, beef cattle, or pork, and haul them to market. He has something built in. Those are some special scripts, that he put in here, that aren't in the base game. So, when I look at maps that I want to spend time on, this, of course, scratches that itch because he does have things in here. And I've noticed too, when I spend a lot of time on a map, I start tinkering with it myself and adding things to it, kind of like I've done it here in a few areas. I know at some point I'm going to hopefully do more with, sorry Russell, but do more with trees, because I got a whole passel of trees coming down there, and I want to do something with them more than just turn them into logs, to sell as raw logs. I want to kind of turn them into wood chips, turn them into board lumber, by being able to put in a sawmill in here and turn some of the wood chips into pellets, take them to homes so they can heat their homes with them, whatever. So some of those opportunities to do more are created by mods, and some of them are going to be built into the app itself. So Wes, of course, has things built into the map, and he also left plenty of room for placeables. So additional things like greenhouses and whatnot could be put down, or any type of factory, that they had back in this era of the game. And of course, as most of us know, the newer versions of the game, the options there for factories has just expanded hugely, even beyond the realm of farming by quite a long shot. So I'll get kind of to the area where it's a little bit bumpier. We're still planting, so that is good. And it's not going to be just necessarily new things to do. Sometimes a map author can very cleverly put things in their map that are really, they're not adding an extra script or anything to do, and Wes has put some of these things in here too. For example, trees that are bent over or have limbs that are obstructing part of your field operations. Just like in real life, when you have trees encroaching on the farmland, you sometimes need to go in with a chainsaw and take care of them so you don't bang up your machinery, when you're farming around all of that. So that's kind of a clever thing that some app authors, including Wild Wild West, put into, oh, come on, make contact, please, get up the hill. Or not here. Left it, there we go. Come on, you can do it. Yeah, this tractor's just underpowered for some of these extra bumps. So there's little things like that can be done to help liven up and give something extra to do. That make a map, special and stand out kind of from others. Another, and kind of following on the heels of that, does the map have something unique in it that no other map has? And given the tools at the disposal of most modders, that's pretty hard to pull off. And a lot of times, it would require the map author to have other skills, particularly modeling or maybe scripting, to build something into his or her map, that was truly unique. So that is no small feat. But I would say, like in this map, something Wes has in here, if you look clear down the pheasant pluckers, there's the go-kart track. I don't recall ever seeing any other map that had a go-kart track, in it. And now, granted, that isn't something I'm going to be down racing on or doing anything with, but it's really cool that he put something like that in here as just kind of a unique feature. Oh, this is going down over the hill. Whee! I'm glad I'm going downhill with that particular. Definitely need to clean some of this up in the editor. Make it a little bit easier to navigate. Either that or I've planted those areas to grass again. And actually, this particular map, I can't remember if I've mentioned it before, it's so unique the way it is, but it was modified further into, not even so much as a farming type map, but a gaming, a racing one. And it, I forget what it's called, Gelvin Valley Rally App, something like that. I think back when West was part of the Mappers Paradise group. I don't know that they ever released it, or at least I can't recall. I remember being involved just a little bit. I was asked to write a Lewis script for being able to track the time of a race, so you could see who did a particular stretch the fastest. So, but I don't know if it was ever used or if the map, like I say, was ever released. But it took all the road network and kind of changed it up a little bit, putting in bales of hay at strategic locations to set up a racetrack. They put in a field kind of up top where you could play soccer with tractors. By hitting this massive soccer ball, getting it into the other guy's goal or whatever. So that is definitely unique. Can't say that is something I'm entirely interested in. I mean, I come here for the farming type environment. If I wanted to play a racing game, I would get a car racing game versus trying to do it in farming sim. But it's very clever, what they tried to do, and definitely unique. I don't think I've ever seen another farming sim app attempt something like that. So uniqueness, that is up really high in terms of criteria of taking on a map. And then the last one that I have on my list, which I'll just mention here so we can get this finished up, is does it feel like home? And I guess maybe that's kind of just a catch-all comment for, does this look like a place that I could spend a lot of time on? And maybe it's not a good idea to select an app, that takes a ton of time, but it's more the enjoyment aspect. There's something about Gelvin Valley that keeps me coming back to it, and it's hard to just put my finger on what it is, but maybe one simple way to say it would be is it feels like home. It's a place I like being in here, even though it's an older game, and so we're dealing with some of the limitations of some of the older games, but I still like it, and I don't care. I'm willing to put up with whatever those limitations are because it feels like a place where I want to be regardless. So kind of a catch-all thing, does it feel like home? So what is your criteria for picking a map? For me, I'll just kind of run that down through it here real quick. Is it a large map, 4x and above? Does it have an interesting PDA map? Is it based on a real life area, or does it look plausible, that it could be a real life area the way it was designed? Are the colors vibrant? Are the models good? The models in good perspective? Does it feel realistic and to make one able to suspend reality? Is it error-free? And if it does have a couple errors, are they at least of the nature that they're not, the recurring ones, that show up in the log and blow it up? Does it have a lot to do? Or extra things beyond the standard fare, the standard things that come with a regular Giants map? Does it have something unique in it that no other map has? And then the final one, does it have the feel? Does it feel like home? Does it seem like a place you could spend a lot of time on? Anywho, that's kind of my criteria, and I'd be really interested to know in the comments if you also have a list of, what are the options you like to have when you pick a map to spend a lot of time on? Something you even think about, or do you want to just do a little farming and forget about it? Those of us that have longer saves, where we spend a lot of time here, I'm pretty sure the list I laid out is probably something that's going to resonate. But I'd love to hear also from you. So in the meantime, I'll get this over to the next field in between episodes here. Thank you so much for coming by to spend a little time here. I will see you on the next episode of Gelvin Valley. You take care.